Buongiorno, welcome back to our Italian for Beginners. This is lesson 31, lezione 31. I have been missing for a bit because I have been traveling, as I do sometimes. So you can see that there is a completely different background. At the moment, I am quite far from Sardinia and Italy as well. So I am back in the UK. Hence the absence from the channel for a couple of weeks at least. So I'm going to continue, as you remember, lesson 30, if you have watched the video. In lesson 30, I covered direct object pronouns. I hope they are clear, and at the bottom in the description, I have also added a video, which is a part 2, which I did not include in the playlist of Italian for Beginners, but I have instead posted in the main, still in the same channel, but together with all the other videos, which, as I said before, is a mixture with different topics. And as I said, I'm going to repeat it because obviously some of you have not watched all the videos and some are new. In the those other videos are for different levels. However, at this point, if you are following the course for Italian for Beginners, you can and should also start looking at other videos, which will be very useful to improve your Italian and widen your knowledge. In this channel, in this part, so out of the playlist, so there is a variety of videos, and some of them are more specific for intermediate and advanced level. However, there are also some which are okay for all levels. In fact, it does say Italian for all levels. So do keep watching, keep an eye on those videos as well. So today we are following from a last video. We are doing instead indirect object pronouns. So the ones in lesson 30 were direct object pronouns, and these ones will be indirect object pronouns. So let's go immediately into our extremely useful tables, which I find in some of my books. So this again is from one of the books that I use for tables, and there are some exercises as well. These books I've had for about 20 years at least. So some or most of them are actually off print. So you can find them secondhand. And if you're interested, if you like the look of them, if you like these tables, and you are interested in finding the books, do leave a comment, and I will let you know which books these are. So instead of, it's always better to see, especially when we're talking about this very specific and kind of complex grammar, it is better to immediately look at the tables instead of trying to describe these pronouns without seeing what they do and how they look like also. If you remember from lesson 30, if you haven't seen it, do go and watch the video. And it doesn't matter if you watch this one before or after number 30. However, as I said, the first one, number 30, with the direct object pronouns. There is the introduction, it's an introduction. So here we are following. There are two separate types of pronouns, but similar in a way. Let's see how. So if you remember, we have here exactly like we had for the direct pronouns. We have forma atona e forma tonica. Atona is the weak form, translated in English, and tonica is the strong form. The weak form is the one that we use the most, really, and it gets more integrated in the sentence, and you almost disappear in the whole sentence, in the intonation and of the other words, really. The strong form, or forma tonica, is the one that we use for emphasis. So when we are emphasizing a specific person or object as well. So you see these ones less. The strong form, you see it less than the weak form. However, it is always useful to know that not only that it exists, but also it is useful. We'll see when we're looking at the examples, it's useful for the constructions of in certain context. Now it sounds very abstract, especially if you have not yet looked at the previous video, lesson 30, with the direct object pronouns. And let me just remind you, as I said, I also posted part 2 of the direct object pronouns together with the mixed, let's call it the mixed videos, because it can apply to everyone as a revision. And also I compare and also see the differences and how to use them, especially. So compare the direct object pronouns to the subject pronouns. At this point, in theory, or most of you probably don't know what I'm talking about or have a vague idea of what I'm talking about. So do go and watch both videos, and they will help you to understand a little bit more, and it just make things a little bit clearer. And then you can come back to this video. It's always better to follow an order, because certain things are introduced, especially in this course, they're introduced gradually. So if you miss something, sometimes what comes afterwards doesn't necessarily make much sense, or it's a little bit more difficult to understand. So these ones, as I said, they are indirect instead of direct. They are pronouns. If you remember, pronouns are in place of a noun. So they are replacing a noun that normally we have already mentioned, but technically, but not always. So let's see. In fact, we're going to start this time from the strong form, la forma tonica. Even if in general, especially I have said this for the direct object pronouns, in general, it is better to concentrate, when you're learning them, concentrate on the forma atona, or weak form, because, as I said, these are those ones that we use the most. However, the only reason why I'm starting with this strong form is that it makes a little bit more sense, in fact, much more sense, as an English speaker, to see the difference between the direct and indirect. So a couple of examples for the direct object pronouns was, for example, he sees me, or we see them, they buy it, etc. So direct, and now let's see why this one's indirect. Indirect because between the verb and the pronoun, we have a preposition. So you can see it's really just to try and make sense. It's not necessarily, well, I guess it is as well, a grammar description, but even visually indirect because we have a preposition. So we are going indirectly from the verb, which is here, to the pronoun. If it helps. If it doesn't help, don't worry about it. It's just sometimes I do try and give some ideas or to make it a little bit easier to learn, to understand. But if it doesn't make sense, if you don't find it easier, don't worry about it. Just use your own your way of learning and whatever makes sense to you. Everybody has a different way of learning. However, we are going to start with this strong form. So if you remember, the directs were me, you, him, her, it, us, you, plural, and them. This ones, instead, the indirect is very similar. However, as I said, we have the preposition a, which means to. So it's to me, to you, to him, to her, to us, to you, plural, and to them. So these are the pronouns, the strong form of these pronouns. And let's see the whole sentence. He talks to me. He talks to you. He talks to him. He talks to her. He talks to us. He talks to you, plural. He talks to them. So that's why it makes sense starting with this, the strong form, because as I said, it follows exactly the same structure and word order as in English. And then we can, as I said, we've got the other form. So we can see it, if we want, as an abbreviation, let's say, or visually at least, but not necessarily, just practically as well, an abbreviation of this, the strong form. So the weak form, as I said, it flows better in the sentence, so it almost disappears if we don't put any emphasis on the pronouns in the weak form. And this is, let's see, the weak form. We have mi, ti, gli, le, ci, vi, gli. Some of them, yes, they do look exactly like the direct object pronouns. It would be much easier and less confusing if they were completely different. However, they're not. Some of them are exactly the same. Mi, ti, ci, vi are exactly the same. And to make it even a little bit more confusing, mi, ti, ci, vi, which is first and second person singular and plural, are also the same as the reflexive pronouns. And that is why I am going to post very soon as possible, in fact, a follow-up to this video. It will be part 2, or there may be a part 3 as well, where I'm going to compare the direct, indirect, and reflexive pronouns to see the differences between all of them. So differences, which are the way they are used and the meaning. The similarities are only visual. So especially at the beginning, they can confuse, and especially, for example, if you see me on its own, then you will know if it is a direct and indirect or a reflexive pronoun. But normally you won't see it on its own. So you have to always look at it and all of them. Really, you have to look at them in the context. Are they accompanied by a verb. Where is the position in the sentence? Position is normally just the same, really. But which verb do they come with? Is less a little difference, as I said, is as I used one of the examples that I used earlier, you can with the verb to see, exactly like in English, you say he sees me. The verb to see can only go with a direct object pronoun. And this one instead, parlare, to talk to somebody. So you know that talk to, accompanied by the preposition, you will need the indirect object pronoun, not direct. I hope this will make sense. As I said, this is not the only video that I'm going to post about these pronouns. So do look at all of them, watch all of them. And let me remind you that you are very welcome, in fact, encouraged to ask questions if you have any doubts. So feel free to ask a question in the comment, and as many questions as you want. If it is a very simple answer, I will reply in the comments. If instead the answer or the question, in fact, would require a longer explanation, and especially if it is something that could benefit many, then I will post another video to explain those questions. So as I said, feel free to ask as many questions as you want. So visually, as we said, visually these ones, they do look like other things that we have seen, but I will cover these things that can confuse people or learners. I will make a separate videos for that. Here now we are just going through the pronouns, how to use them, and which ones we have. So here we have some examples. And so here, the first ones, oh, we got wagging tails. We got visitors. So we've got some examples. We have basically the same sentence. However, we're using the strong form here and the weak form here. Let's read these examples. We have Lucia ha parlato a me. So in this case, using the strong form, we are putting emphasis and specifying that Lucia talked to me. She didn't talk to anybody else. She chose to talk to me. So, for example, this is a bit intrinsic, really. It's almost you're saying Lucia ha parlato a me, non ha parlato a te. So she talked to me, not to you. So this, as I said, if this is exactly what happened, that she chose to talk to me instead of somebody else. And that's why it's the forma tonica, the strong form, the emphatic form. Instead, when we're using the weak form, forma atona, which, as I said, it flows better in the sentence, we're giving a slightly different where the implications are different. The information is the same. The Lucia talked to me, but the implications are different. So mi ha parlato, it just means Lucia talked to me today. That's it. It doesn't mean that she didn't talk to somebody else. She just talked to me today. She spoke to me. Exactly the same here. Mario ha offerto un tè a Maria. So Mario offered a tea, a cup of tea to Maria. This is not the English word order. However, here remember that we are putting emphasis on the fact that Maria was offered a cup of tea, but probably, or maybe depending on the implications, whatever the context is, probably or possibly Mario doesn't normally offer tea to anyone, or maybe he doesn't offer it to Maria. However, in this occasion, he did. And here we said, as I said earlier, I said, especially at the beginning, do concentrate on learning the weak forma atona. However, keep in mind that forma tonica is very important for the construction or in other specific contexts, and this is one. So if you have, instead of him or her, in this case specifically, you have somebody's name, this is the structure you need to use. You need to use a followed by someone's name. Yeah, that's what we say. We'll see also some other examples. So here we are saying Mario specifically decided to offer a cup of tea to Maria. And similar sentence, however, with the weak form is le ha offerto un tè. So basically here, the information is similar or same. The context, the implications are different. For example, if we had a question, the question for this one would be, who did Mario offered a tea to? Or to whom Mario offered a cup of tea? Mario offered a cup of tea to Maria. You won't believe it. Instead, if we had a question for this statement here, if this was an answer, the question would be, what did Mario offered her? He offered her a cup of tea. So that is the difference, which is not a gigantic difference, but actually it can be a big difference because the context, the context is different. As I said, the question, if the question is, who did he offer a cup of tea to? So we're putting emphasis on Maria. It was Maria he offered a cup of tea to. Here instead, what did he offer? He offered a cup of tea. So we're talking about more of the tea. What he offers, not specifically who he chose to offer a cup of tea to. So this is the difference between the weak and the strong form, the emphasis or the sentence with emphasis or the sentence without emphasis. Exactly the same here. Ho telefonato agli amici. I called or I telephoned, I phoned my friends, literally to the friends. Because, yes, see, I'll say this in a little bit. So this we are specifying who did I call, or who did it doesn't work in English. It doesn't work fantastically in English, really. Who I called, and here instead, gli ho telefonato ieri sera is more like I called them yesterday evening, last night. So here I'm specifying who I called, and here I said when. So it's not a surprise who I called. I'm just telling you when I called these people, in this case, my friends. Something to keep in mind, and I will say more. I will spend a little bit more time when I'll post a follow-up or part 2 or 3 video to this one, is that we have different, so certain verbs work slightly different in Italian and in English. And this is one of them. For example, in Italian, we say, I phoned to someone. And that's why in Italian, we need the indirect object pronoun. However, in English, the type of verb is different. You say, I phoned someone. So in English, you need direct object pronoun. So that is one of the little traps where you can fall easily. And at this point, this is probably a little bit complicated, but as I said, I've given you this information. Don't worry too much about it. Concentrate. If you remember it and it's clear, very good. As I said, there will be a follow-up video to this. However, the most important thing about this video, lesson 31, is that you are learning the pronouns, how to use them, and in particular, concentrate on this. Quickly going back to this, as I said earlier, the sum are just the same as the direct pronouns. And then we have also li, which is to him, and li, to them, which are just the same. So sometimes you do need to know the context a little bit better because they are just the same word for two differences. So him or them, to him or to them. This is forma di cortesia, a little reminder that if you are talking to somebody formally, you need to use whatever you would use for she, for lei. So lei, which is to her, and that's what you use for to you, but when you're talking in a formal context. And normally in a book, especially textbooks, you will see the difference when it's formal. They will use the capital letter. So keep this in mind. Remember, capital letter is formal. What is useful here, as I said, some verbs work differently in English and in Italian. One example we have seen when we covered the verb piacere, to like. And if you remember, is the piacere in Italian means to be pleasing. You are pleasing to somebody. Instead, in English, you say someone likes something. Instead, in Italian, something is pleasing to someone. So backwards, if you want. And that's why sometimes it's a little bit difficult or complicated to use the verb piacere, like, because you are using indirect object pronouns. So pizza can be pleasing to me, it can be pleasing to you, to him, to her, to us, to you, plural, and to them. But this you'll see specifically, I do have more than one videos about verbo piacere, so do watch that as well. And then instead, with the verb sembrare, which is to seem, which does work exactly like in English. So, come ti sono... sorry, I didn't read this sentence. Non gli è piaciuta la pizza. So, pizza was not pleasing to him, if gli is him or them. Him or them. From this sentence, we don't know if it's him or them. However, in a more complete, like a paragraph or in a context, we would know, of course. So here the verb sembrare, to seem, the verb works exactly the same in English and Italian. So, come ti sono sembrati i miei amici? How did my friends seem to you? So this is to you, in this case, where is it gone? Ti, which is here, to you. So here, as I said, luckily, we have a verb that works exactly the same way. It seems to me. So this, in fact, the verb to seem, we can use it as well here. For example, instead of parlare, to speak, we can say lui mi sembra, he seems to me. Or lui ti sembra, he seems to you. Or lui gli sembra, he seems to him, etc., etc. And before going on the next page and see some more examples, let's see at the word order, which is the same as in English here. That's why I've concentrated a little bit and started with the strong form. He talks to me, to you, to him, etc. Exactly like in English, the strong form is exactly like in English, the word order. However, when we're using the weak form, remember it's the form that we use the most, the word order changes. So the pronouns go before the verb, just like the direct object pronouns. And now let's see some examples to make it, just to see these pronouns in different contexts, different sentences. And again, I am using another one of my books with very useful tables. So we have on the left, they're giving us an example with the strong form, forma tonica. And on the right, instead, we have very similar, almost the same sentences, but with the weak form, forma atona. Now, I'm going to warn you, I'm warning myself, that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to translate the difference between the emphatic form and the form which is not emphatic. So sometimes in English, in order to translate the emphatic form especially, you need to change the word order a little bit in order to, as I said, to put emphasis on the person that you need to put emphasis onto. So let's see what happens here. So here we have la musica classica a me piace molto. And here la musica classica mi piace molto. So let's say, so the weak form, you're just giving information about your taste, really. Instead, the strong form, a me piace molto, it could be, so the context could be that somebody said, I don't like classical music. And instead you're saying, for me, or classical music is really nice, in my opinion. So you can actually translate, instead of saying, just saying to me, you can say, in my opinion, or classical music is really nice. Or instead, so you may not like it, but I do like it instead. So you can add, so the do in this case, it puts emphasis and adds contrast between the fact that one person likes classical music and the other doesn't. So there's a way to translate and make the difference. Otherwise, really, if you're translating, I don't like classical music very much. No, sorry. I like classical music very much. I don't know, I think I said I don't. No. And here, I like classical music very much. So this, if you're just giving, I said this translation, however, if you want, in fact, you do need to translate the difference between the strong and weak form. So make sure that there is a difference between these two sentences. It always depends on context. Second example, a te interessa la politica? And this one, ti interessa la politica? Again, so the translation, the general translation, are you interested in politics? However, what is the difference? How do we make the difference between the two? The first one, strong form. The context would be, for example, we have a group of people and I'm asking, are you interested in politics? Oh, no, I'm not. And what about you? Are you? Yes, I am. So this could be a context. So for each person, a te interessa la politica, a me no. A te interessa la politica, a me sì. So this would be, as I said, it could be a group of people we are asking the same question to, a group of people. Instead, this one, for example, they're just two people having a conversation and maybe getting to know each other. So one question that we could ask is, are you interested in politics? Or, by the way, are you interested in politics? So we're talking is that there aren't any other people that may not be interested. So some are, some aren't. Here, the next example, offro la mia collaborazione a Carlo. I offer my collaboration, my help to Carlo. And here, gli offro la mia collaborazione. I offer him my collaboration. He actually already, especially because here we have some of this name, there is already a difference. So I'm offering my collaboration to Carlo specifically, nobody else, but Carlo, yes, I will. Instead, this other question, sentence, gli offro la mia collaborazione. So what are you going to offer to Carlo? I'm going to offer him my collaboration. Fantastic translation, by the way. A little bit literal translation, but just to show you the difference between one and another. Next example. Sei sicuro che darai i tuoi appunti a lei? Are you sure you want to give your notes to her? And this one. Sei sicuro che le darai i tuoi appunti? Are you sure you're going to give her your notes? So what is the difference here? Are you sure you're gonna give your notes to her? Do you remember last time she never gave them back to you? So there is, as I said, there is something behind this. There is a history almost behind this question. Instead, this other question: are you sure you're gonna give her your notes? Meaning, will you have the time to do it? Or some other, I'm just giving you examples. We don't really know the context, but just examples to see the difference between one and another. Yeah. Signore o signora, a lei posso dire tutto. So, sir or madam, to you, I can tell everything. No, I can say everything to you. This is a difficult one to translate. This one, signore or signora, le posso dire tutto. Sir, madam, I can tell you everything. Or let me tell you everything. That's the difference. So this one, to you, I can definitely say anything. You know that I can. And I know I can trust you. Instead, this one is a different context. So, no, wait 1 second. I can tell you everything. Let me just tell you everything. Next one. A noi sembra strano questo fatto. To us, this sounds really strange, really odd. Ci sembra strano questo fatto. So, this thing that they told us just sounds a little bit strange, a bit odd, a little bit odd. Again, also when you're talking, obviously it's different because you can put the emphasis on the word, that a crucial word. So it is up to you when you're writing, especially translating, well, not just translating from Italian into English, but also remember that you need to understand the difference in Italian. It's not just a translation. So that's why we are translating this, because you need to understand the difference between the two. Alessio non presterà soldi a voi. Alessio is not going to lend you any money to you. Infatti, Alessio is not going to lend any money to you. You never gave him back the money that he lent you last time. He doesn't trust you. Imagine all this, yeah? Alessio non vi presterà soldi. Alessio is not going to lend you any money to because he never does. He never lends money to anyone. So he's not going to lend you any money. French. Non chiedo mai niente ai miei genitori. I never ask anything from my parents to my parents. Non gli chiedo mai niente. I never ask anything to whoever would be my parents. But to my parents, in particular, to my parents or from my parents, I never ask anything. I never demand anything. This is a little bit more difficult, I have to say. Telefono spesso a Rita e Tiziana. I quite often I do call Rita and Tiziana. Not other friends, but Rita e Tiziana definitely quite often. Or gli telefono spesso, quite often. I call them quite often. So here you are specifying who you call, and here whoever it is, it could be still them. So I call them often. So you're specifying the fact that you call them often, not that you call them but not others. What we have here is the reason why in the previous, let's see quickly, the previous here in this table you had an asterisk here. Let's see why. So here they're giving us the different steps. Offro il caffè agli ospiti. I serve or I offer coffee to the guests. So the guest is them, is the last one. So we can say gli offro il caffè. I offer them a coffee. Or offro loro il caffè, which is just the same. However, the only difference is that this one, offro loro il caffè, sounds really formal, a little bit outdated, really, a little bit from long time ago. And you can probably see it in writing sometimes, or as I said, if more like a formal style, really. And this, gli offro il caffè, is a little bit more modern. When I say modern, this has been used for at least 40 or 40 years instead of, in place of this in the spoken language. Because I remember at some point, this was about 40 years ago again, that's when there was or I felt at least, there was a bit of the switch between one or another. So it was like, so this one you were supposed to say this, but it sounds quite awkward and really backward, really, almost. As I said, it's not necessarily, but it doesn't flow as well as gli offro il caffè. So there was a little bit of switch. So you were supposed to say this, but instead you said that because it's so much easier. So it's gli offro il caffè. So you kind of hid it a little bit. Oh, this, as I said, this is my experience. That's how I remember it. But I said this one is more formal. You probably, or you may see it in writing, but this one is what we normally use. Right. So that was quite long. So I hope these indirect object pronouns, pronomi indiretti, I hope they are clear or clearer if you have already looked at them, because you may be a beginner, so it probably feels quite heavy, really, or you may not be beginner, but you just wanted to just listen to the explanation again or revise them. So I hope they are clear or clearer. If they are not, or if you do have questions, as I said, do put them in the comments. And by the way, do like, subscribe if you haven't, share the videos if you think somebody may interested in these videos or may benefit from it or them. And I will see you on in our next lesson, which will be lesson 32, 32. Do keep an eye on, not on this playlist of Italian for beginners, but on the other videos, because that is where I'm going to post a follow-up to this, like a part 2, as I did with direct pronouns, where I'm going to go a little bit more in depth, and I'm going to see the difference, as I said, between direct, indirect, and some traps. And also I will include or add at some point, probably in the next one, or at some point, I'm going to add the or compare as well the reflexive pronouns to see them separately. I call them like three, like sets, different sets. They're not sets grammatically, but so you see how they work and how different they really are. Anyway, so I will see you next time. Ci vediamo. Ciao.